26-year-old woman in the state of Texas spent several days behind bars after a hospital she went to notified authorities that she had performed a self-induced abortion. Now, there are no laws in the state of Texas indicating that a woman who does a self-induced abortion should be criminalized, should face charges. But nonetheless, this woman did in fact briefly face murder charges. I want to give you the details on what happened. Lizelle Herrera was arrested Thursday and held in jail on a $500,000 bond, court records show. She was released on bail Saturday, according to jail records. The district attorney had presented the possible murder charge to a grand jury last month, leading to her indictment and arrest before his Sunday announcement. And what was his Sunday announcement? Well, it was that he's gonna drop charges because it turns out that what she did is not considered a crime and she is not supposed to be punished for what she did. But there's a lot to get to, including the fact that a grand jury decided it made sense to press charges against her according to laws that don't even exist in the state. Now, Texas has effectively banned abortion by essentially saying that fetuses, or at that point they're not even fetuses, embryos past 6 weeks allegedly have a heartbeat. That of course is debated pretty fiercely, and as a result should be given personhood. And most women do not know that they're pregnant at 6 weeks. And so if you detect what's being referred to as a heartbeat, although that's a dubious claim, the abortion provider is not allowed to perform the abortion. That creates an environment in which women who are desperate are gonna go to extreme lengths. Either they're going to seek an abortion in an unsafe place, so-called back alley abortions, which were very common prior to the Roe v. Wade ruling of the Supreme Court in the 1970s. But what's also important to keep in mind is that while for the moment, Texas and these other red states do not have laws on the books indicating that a woman should be punished for a self-induced abortion, does anyone really question that we're headed in that direction? And for a woman who might already do something like that in a state like Texas, now they know that if something goes wrong and they go to the hospital seeking help to stay alive, well, the hospital could very well report her to the authorities, which is what happened in this case with Herrera. Herrera was indicted on the murder charge after she intentionally and knowingly caused the death of an individual by self-induced abortion. So I want to be clear about something. There are a lot of details to this story that we do not know as we share the details today. I'm sure that we'll learn more about it as the days progress. For instance, we don't know how far along she was. We also don't know how she performed this self-induced abortion. But the important issue here is that she did a self-induced abortion. Something went wrong, she needed medical attention. And when she went to seek a medical attention, she was reported to the authorities and a grand jury decided to indict her based on anti-abortion laws that don't even exist in an extreme right-wing state like Texas. And I say extreme right-wing not because of the voters, as we know, Texas has actually become more purple rather than red. But when you look at the actions of the Texas state governor, Greg Abbott, he has passed through executive order some extreme measures. The state legislature has passed some extreme measures pertaining to abortion, as I detailed earlier. And so this is what we're dealing with now. Now, in a statement later, the very district attorney who actually pursued these charges against this woman decided to drop them, saying this: in reviewing applicable Texas law, it is clear Ms. Herrera cannot and should not be prosecuted for the allegation against her. That's Gocha Allen Ramirez, the Starr County DA. So Starr County DA, before throwing this person behind bars for 3 days, before getting a grand jury involved to decide whether or not she should be indicted, did you not have a firm understanding of what the state law entails? How can you be a district attorney and be so ignorant of state laws? That's what I want to know. I also want to know what kind of impact spending 3 days behind bars had on this 26-year-old woman who's probably already dealing with the trauma of a self-induced abortion that went awry. very curious, did she lose her job? What kind of impact has this had on herself, on her family? Well, he mentions this, saying, despite pursuing a murder charge originally, Ramirez said Sunday he hoped his dismissal would make clear that Ms. Herrera did not commit a criminal act under the laws of the state of Texas. Oh, but Ramirez knows what he's doing, because this is a way to intimidate women. If you have performed a self-induced abortion, which already is a gross misjustice that women would have to go through that already, right? Would you seek medical attention if something goes wrong, knowing full well that the hospital, instead of providing the medical care that you need, providing the safety and security that you need, they're gonna turn around and report you to the district attorney? This has an element of intimidation. It's meant to essentially instill fear among women who might feel so desperate that they take matters into their own hands. And remember, we just shared a story with you last week about the state of Oklahoma just outright banning abortion. All of these women from Texas have been traveling to Oklahoma in order to get their reproductive health needs met. And now they won't be able to do that. So as it becomes more and more restrictive for women to practice their agency over their own bodies, to take reproductive health into their own hands, what do you think is gonna happen? We're gonna see more and more of these stories, and I'm fearful that we're gonna see more women die as a result of the intimidation tactics that we're seeing here. He also says, although with this dismissal, Ms. Herrera will not face prosecution for this incident, it is clear to me that the events leading up to this indictment have taken a toll on Ms. Herrera and her family. Yeah, you have taken a toll on Ms. Herrera and her family. You have, by dragging her through this, by putting her behind bars for several days and putting her through, I mean, this self-induced abortion happened in January. So from January till just this past weekend, Herrera has been dealing with the, honestly, consequences, ramifications of a district attorney who clearly has no problem intimidating women, but more importantly, puts himself in a position where he appears to be incredibly ignorant of state law. Kind of weird to have a district attorney that doesn't know what state law entails, really. But the thing that I want to also talk about is really the history of abortion, or this abortion debate in the country, and what it's really about. Because I've said repeatedly that this is not about saving lives. I mean, it's funny, right? To have the same party that touts loosened gun laws, no restrictions whatsoever, which get all sorts of people killed. That's the same party that claims that they want to protect the lives of zygotes and embryos. Yeah, not buying it. What this is really about is political strategy. It's about manipulation. It's about power, control, and punishment. And so I take you to this video that explains to you how right-wingers actually were not against abortion until they realized they could use the issue as a political tool. Let's watch.
Historically, neither party was really pro-choice or pro-life, and there were politicians in either party who could be found in each camp. So there were lots of Catholic pro-life Democrats, like presidential candidate Joe Biden at one time opposed abortion.
Republican First Lady Betty Ford called Roe v. Wade a great decision. And Republican Vice President Nelson Rockefeller had campaigned for abortion rights in New York. Even the chair of the Republican National Committee was pro-abortion rights.
It really changed in 1980. In part, that was because Ronald Reagan was the first candidate to really make abortion a major issue. He was trying to capitalize on something that I think Richard Nixon had identified earlier in the 70s, which was that there were lots of traditionally Democratic voters. These were often Catholics or evangelical Protestants who were blue collar, may have been part of a union, generally voted for Democrats because they thought the Democrats fought for the little guy. And Reagan thought that those voters could be peeled off if people in the GOP appealed to their views on issues like abortion.
When you look at the history of this debate, it is so clear that this topic, women's bodies, our reproductive health, has never really been an issue that these politicians have genuinely been concerned about. It's always been an issue that they've seen as a tool in order to galvanize voters, to peel away Democratic voters who happen to be religious from the Democratic Party. And this strategy really started in 1972 under Nixon's presidential campaign. He realized, wait, I can actually secure this key voting bloc, the religious vote, by paying lip service to an issue that really I don't care about, Nixon didn't care about, Reagan didn't care about. I mean, Reagan actually made it easier for women to receive abortions in California when he was the state's governor. But once he realized it could be used as a political tool, once Nixon realized it could be used as a political tool to lock down a specific voting bloc in the country, the rest is history. It's not about saving lives. You can't on one hand claim that you care about saving the lives of unborn children while simultaneously fighting tooth and nail to cut funding for programs that help to keep children living in poverty alive, including food stamps, including the child tax credit. You can't claim to be in favor of preserving human lives when you simultaneously advocate for weakened gun legislation that allows anyone to easily purchase a gun with no background check at things like gun shows, the so-called gun show loophole. I mean, it is incredible that voters have fallen for this. There are single issue voters who somehow have convinced themselves that controlling the lives of women and being incredibly punitive about it is the most important thing in the country. But while these voters are hyper-focused on targeting and attacking the freedoms and the reproductive health of women, the very party that they support through their actions ends up doing what? Tax cuts for the rich, deregulation for corporations, more pollution in our waterways, in our air. I mean, that is what the Republican Party and honestly, increasingly the Democratic Party has been up to. And in the meantime, all of us at the bottom continue to fight each other through these culture wars that have been manufactured specifically to accumulate political power. That's not to say that the manufactured culture wars don't have a detrimental impact. That's not to say that it has no negative impact on the very, disempowered populations they have to do with, right? But at the same time, all those negative impacts, it's like the price that we pay in order to make room for these politicians to accumulate power for themselves. That's all it's about. It really is incredible stuff. It really is.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.